learners, and welcome to the session on BSW program. The first session that we're going to start is Introduction to Social Work Concept number 1. I am Professor Rosnembia Kim from the School of Social Work, and joining me is Dr. Kondal Lingaswamy from the School of Social Work. So without any further ado, we will start with the first unit, that is Introduction to Social Work Concepts. Now, when I introduce, I would like to talk about social work. Social work is a relatively new profession, less visible due to its inability to demonstrate actual results that evolve or change from its practice. Now, if I have to use the layman term, what is social work, then everyone would be saying social work is a profession of helping others to help themselves. Now, this is a very common layman term that we use. However, when we talk about professional social work, there are methods involved and there are strategies involved. So, in today's class, you will come to know more about what actually is social work in the professional aspect. Now, the most important reason behind this inability, that is what we talked about, that social work is a relatively new profession and it is less visible. So, why is it? It is because the use of social relationship as the major medium of professional practice or help, which by their very nature are intangible. So nobody can actually understand to what extent the social work profession creates help or bring about a change, although the process is slow, but the result is definitely oriented. Now, since effective professional practice demands clarity in terms of the varied kinds of concepts used, it becomes obligatory to clarify and define them and point out the distinction between similar concepts used in social work or the same concepts used in other social sciences like sociology and psychology, from which social work has heavily borrowed. Now, when we talk about social work, we all know that social work is multidisciplinary. That is, we have taken from sociology, psychology, anthropology, economics, political science. So, when these subjects are forming a part of the entire one subject, that is social work, we derive a much more better clarity in terms of its concepts, and that is why we say social work is a professional medium of helping others to help themselves, or is a professional medium where the concepts are used as compared to the other social sciences as well. Now, some of the noteworthy concepts dealt with here are charity, shramdan, and voluntary action. Now, why do we say, or why do we give emphasis to charity, shramdan, or voluntary action? Is because when you talk about social work, since time immemorial, social work has been associated with helping others to help themselves. Now, before a very long time, every religion talked about social work. Although it is not social work as in the professional term that we use today in this contemporary society, every religion starts with charity work, be it Christianity, be it Hinduism, be it Jainism, be it Sikhism, you name any kind of religion, everybody starts with the process of helping others. Now, when we talk about social work, helping others is obviously the pertinent one, but helping others to help themselves comes in the form of using certain concepts, in terms of certain strategies, in terms of certain methods, and that is what social work brings into it. Now, first of all, we will talk about charity. As mentioned, charity since time immemorial has been used not only in religion but also in every practice of our daily life. Our grandparents, their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents have always been using the concept of charity, that is helping others, giving of alms to beggars, giving of food to the religious people, giving of food to other neighbors who are in need. All these starts from charity. And the major example in a country is India, where charity forms every part and parcel of our everyday life. So quite often when we talk about charity, particularly the giving of alms is also considered as social work, although there is no professional aspect or aesthetic involved with it. But then over the years, when we do the research and when we do our practices, we realize that yes, charity is part of social work, which is not correct. Over the time, we have to come in terms with understanding charity as a professional aspect. So the term charity, as defined in the Webster Encyclopedic Unabridged Dictionary, states that or refers to charitable action as alms giving or performing other benevolent actions of any sort for the needy with no expectation of material rewards. Now, the basic concept of giving charity to people is to help people without any expectation. As an individual, if I help others with the expectations of getting something in return, then that is not charity. That is lending, that is borrowing, that is not even helping, that may be called as supporting. So when we talk about charity, the basic concept of having no expectation of any kind of reward, be it material, be it emotional, be it physical, that is the concept of charity. Now, charity in the sense of assistance given to persons to whom one is not socially related was channelized or channeled through religious institutions. Now, when we talk about the charity donations or the donation box in most of these religious places, those are charity. The money that you give in, the alms that you give in, the material possessions that you give in, you do not know who it goes to. You do not know who receives this charity that you give. So the fact that you do not know who is getting the benefit of your charitable behavior is considered as charity, and you do not expect any other reward in return. So you give it wholeheartedly. So that is the essence of charity. Now, most of the organized religions all over the world have advocated and even practiced charity as a great virtue and good quality which their followers must possess. Now, this is the main and the most important aspect of every religion, that is to be charitable, to be giving, to be helpful. And that is what is the essence of social work. When we talk about helping others to help themselves, as social workers, we put ourselves first in order to help others so that they're able to go ahead and help themselves. Now, talking about religion, I would like to inform all of you that the Hindu religion sanctifies charity. The earliest reference to charity can be traced in the Rig Veda, the oldest, wherein the god Rudra is highly praised for giving many gifts. Now, from this, we understand how charity comes into being in the Hindu religion. Now, encouraging charity, it mentions, may the one who gives shine most, which means God loves a cheerful giver, as in the Bible it is written. So when you give willingly, you receive all the more. So that is the essence of charity. Now, all the Hindu scriptures clearly advocate the virtue of charity, which must be unfailingly practiced by every householder. Now, charity has been glorified as an exercise in spirituality and socially sanctioned as a duty to be performed by every Hindu to pay the rainas, that is, it varied kinds of debts which every Hindu owes. Now, this is a kind of a custom, a tradition that is followed among the Hindus, wherein they have some form of debts which they have to pay to the gods. Now, however, it has also been concerned that charity should be given to a person who deserves it. Now, if you give charity to people who are in need of it, who needs it, who are helpless, then that is, you are giving something without expecting anything in return. Now, there are certain people who deserve charity but who do not know how to get possession of the same, and you as a rightful person can also give to that person. So it depends on how your religion teaches you, and the religion teaches you to be helpful, be a cheerful giver, and like we've mentioned, wherein it says, may the one who gives shine the most. So this is a kind of practice that every religion professes and teaches its followers. Now, generally, men, including Brahmins, who are scholars seriously devoted to studies of the Hindu scriptures, and disabled, were considered to be the eligible persons to be given charity. So when we talk about giving charity to people who deserves, who are there? They are the Brahmins or the disabled who do not work but who have the ability to, or who deserves the charity that is given to them. Now, the Old Testament of the Bible among the Christian value or the Christian religion has laid great stress on charity. Like we've mentioned, it is written in the Bible, God loves a cheerful giver. So when a person gives, the person should give wholeheartedly without having any kind of restraint, not willing to give but willfully giving whatever they have to give. In Islam, charity has been depicted as equivalent to prayer. The giving of alms is one of the 5 basic tenets of Islam, and waqf, dedication of property for purpose of charity is an important part of Muslim law. It is the God portion. So here even the Muslim practice charity. Zoroastrians believe in Usta Ami Yamai Usta Khemachit, that is Gata Usta Vaiti, which means happiness unto him who renders happiness unto others. So that is the concept of charity that the Zoroastrians follow, which is followed mostly by the Parsis. Now, even in the Sikh history that we talked about is replete with innumerable examples of voluntary services to the entire humanity, irrespective of any sect or cult for God's pleasure or divine grace. Guru Nanak Dev has clearly said, "He who serves others in the world getteth a seat in the court of God." Guru Gobind Singh issued an announcement via which every Sikh is required to part with 1/10, that is dasawant, of his income in favor of his community. So if a Sikh person earns well or doesn't earn well, they are supposed to part with 1/10 of their earning to give to the community, to give to the people, which is termed as charity. Now, among the Buddhism and Jainism, we have advocated, or they have advocated, compassion for the poor and needy, wherefrom originate all kind of charity. So we see here that all religion, irrespective of whatever religion that everyone follows, every religion believes in the concept of charity, in giving to the poor, in giving to the needy, in giving without expecting anything in return. Now, charity, whether in cash or kind, is different from social work in the sense that the previous results in temporary relief and makes the recipient or the beneficiary of the charity dependent on the donor, whereas the latter, though having its roots in charity, develops the capacity for self-help among people, either by rendering service to them or by introducing required changes in the obstructive and depriving social system. So this is where we talk about the difference between charity in terms of giving in religion and charity in terms of giving in social work. Charity is giving and that ends. However, in social work, charity starts in helping others, but to help themselves. Now, we have talked so much about charity. Let us look at the other concept of social work, that is voluntary action. Generally, we do not expect any tangible material returns for the charity which they give or help they provide or service they render in voluntary action. As the name suggests, voluntary action is an action that is voluntary. No one forces you to do, but you do it on your own, out of your own likeness. Voluntary action is that action which is done by people voluntarily on their own will and accord, out of natural feeling of compassion and concern for well-being of others, without expecting any kind of tangible material gains in lieu of the work done due to their own wish and desire. Now, in other words, if I may be more precise, it is a direct or indirect help or service which people individually or collectively provide out of their feeling of compassion or kindness to assist others, especially those who are the victims of poverty, ill health, idleness, illiteracy, suppression, oppression, abuse, exploitation, among many others. Now, voluntary action is characterized by, number one, innate or natural urge to help others and promote their well-being in all possible ways, but not necessary monetarily. Absence of any kind of expectation for any material gains in lieu of the help given, which is also in line with charity. Number three, sense of social concern and orientation of helping others in need. And number four, faith in the highest virtue of service to humanity and belief in the primacy of one's duty over one's right. So this is done as voluntary, that is why it is called voluntary action. Now, there is, however, another side of human nature. Human beings, by their nature, are self-seeking. In the present age of individualism, materialism, and hedonism, this self-serving tendency has also increased. This has adversely affected the voluntarism and voluntary action that is done by an individual. People today want to know at the very outset as to what is the benefit that will grow to them out of anything that they do or any program or activity in which they take part. So we can say that people are aware, or people have started to question the concept of any action that they do, whether it's voluntary or it is willful or which is forced upon them. So the concept of asking questions have come about in today's world. There are, however, still people who provide voluntary help. In the change context, therefore, the definition of voluntary action has to be reviewed to include all such expectations of people, such as the payment of traveling and daily allowance to meet their travel expense, and a modest token known as the honorarium to enable them to meet their basic survival needs. So these are the kind of returns that one expects. However, in today's time, especially the COVID age, when you talk about, we see a lot of people coming forward to help people who are in need. So these are known as the voluntary action by individual or by a community or by a religious institution. They do it willfully, willingly to help people who are in need, because during these COVID times, we have people who are out of employment, out of food, out of shelter. So there are people who voluntarily help and come and help the people in need. Now, there may be a number of sources which may reinforce voluntarism. For example, some moral or religious discourse may strengthen the motivation to provide voluntary service. Likewise, the exemplary acts of some philanthropist or charitable organization may strengthen the feeling to help the suffering humanity. Here, as mentioned, the COVID age is a basic example and the most important example that we can see. Although people in our society are changing in terms of helping others, however, because of such a philanthropist or charitable organization, the feeling to help the suffering humanity, especially in times of COVID, have increased, and the voluntary action have definitely increased, and we see examples of such help all over the world in today's time. In the same manner, some horrible incidents or tragedy may generate the feeling to do something for the victims. Moral thoughts by parents or teachers, peers and other role models may also motivate a person to engage in some kind of altruistic action. Now, when we talk about altruistic action, it is a selfless act that is coming out of you. Nobody needs to force you. It just comes. It's an innate quality that you possess. Now, with this, I would like to call on my co-fellow, Dr. Kondalingaswamy, to talk about Shramdan.
Thank you, Professor Rose Nembikim. Covered introduction to social work concepts like charity, voluntary action. Now I am continuing with Shramdan. Shramdan, voluntary manual labor. There is a general tendency among people to label Shramdan as social work, which is thoroughly incorrect and misleading. Shramdan has its origin in Hindi. It consists of two words, sham, manual labor, and dan, donation. Taken together, they mean the act of doing labor voluntarily to promote collective good through some kind of work of construction or plantation. The important characteristics of Shramdan are manual labor, voluntariness, collective and cooperative efforts, and promotion of some common public good or protection of some common public interest. There has been a very healthy tradition of working together voluntarily for promote people's well-being throughout the world, especially in India. In the early stages of social evolution, when life was very hard, as people had not only to face the vagaries of weather, but also to protect them from all kinds of dangers, particularly from the beasts and poisonous reptiles. No sophisticated tools and equipments were available, and people, for their very survival, had to work together by contributing their labor voluntarily. Voluntary manual labor was essential for all kinds of work like breaking of racks or clearing of shrubs, for construction of narrow passages through dense forests, construction of bunds on the banks of rivers, or digging of wells or ponds for drinking water, or construction of shelters alongside the roads for the travelers to take rest. This kind of arrangement continued very well until the community living characterized by the feeling of oneness with or belongingness to the community was in existence, and until the state as an agency of society took the responsibility of promoting people's well-being through performance of varied kinds of works. Even now, there are innumerable examples where aggregates of people work together by contributing them manual labor to bring about improvement in the conditions of people's life and living, maybe through construction of roads, canals, irrigation channels, drains, etc. Even the government has launched much programs like National Service Scheme (NSS), National Cadet Corps (NCC), etc., wherein educated youth are required to contribute their manual labor voluntarily to better the conditions of people in the areas in which they decide to work, particularly with a view to promoting the dignity of labor and inculcating it as part of youth's personality. Undoubtedly, Sramadan is one of immense significance for promoting socio-economic development. Sramadan is a vast reservoir of voluntary manual labor, which finally culminates into many kinds of concrete achievements. However, it is different from social work not only in terms of objectives, but also in terms of methods and techniques as well as philosophy. Sramadan has the objective of getting some concrete work accomplished, particularly by voluntary pooling of the manual labor of aggregate of people who don't expect anything in the return for whether who don't expect anything in return for whatever public good they undertake. Its basic philosophy is the duty of every person to contribute his or her best to promote the well-being of fellow brethren. It also has a significant role in holistic, versatile and integrated development of people's personality as also of the entire social system. Unlike Sramadan, social work is a specialized kind of activity requiring a typical body of knowledge as well as technical skills for its effective delivery. Social work aims at improving the social functioning of persons in society or bringing about desired changes in the social system, so that everyone in society gets opportunities for optimum realization of one's potentials. Social work is based on democratic and humanitarian philosophy which strengthens the values of equality, justice, liberty and fraternity, and that desires well-being of all. Thank you.